Welcome, everybody, to Motivation and Travel Channel. I have with you today a very special guest, uh, author and pastor and church founder, Howard Storm, and author of the book My Descent into Death, which, by the way, you can catch on Audible, which is a very profound experience of a college professor who was an atheist and had an experience and powerful experience and encounter with the Lord. So, welcome, Howard. Thank you for doing this interview. Thank you for coming on my channel.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So, uh, would you mind telling us a brief story of what happened, and we'll talk about your book and your experience?
Okay. When I say brief, I'm going to make it really brief because I can talk about the experience for hours and not cover it all. So this is just going to be kind of an outline. First of all, when it happened, I was a 38-year-old atheist college professor. I taught art at a university, and I was taking a group of students on an art tour of Europe, a 3-week tour, and we were on the last day. Next day, we were coming back to the US. We were in Paris, France, and 11 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday in 1985. I had a hole erupt in my small stomach, and the effect of that was it knocked me to the ground, kicking and screaming because it was the greatest pain I had ever experienced in my life. And my wife called the hotel desk. He called an emergency service. A doctor arrived fairly soon, got me off the floor, examined me, and told me that I had to have surgery within an hour or I would die. So he called an ambulance. They took me to the Hospital General d'Assistance Publique de Paris, the big city hospital there, and I was taken to emergency examined by two more doctors. They confirmed what the doctor at the hotel had said, and that I had to have surgery within an hour or I would die. So they put me on a gurney and took me several blocks away to the surgical building, and I was put in a room. Um, I didn't know this at this time, but there was no, because it was a Saturday and most of the doctors took the weekend off, there was no doctor available to look at me or to assign me into the hospital. So I lay on a bed, and for the next 10 hours, I never saw a doctor. I was given no pain relievers, no medication, no treatment, just laid on the bed. And the pain, which was the worst pain I'd ever experienced in my life, just kept getting worse and worse because it now, instead of it being an area in the middle of my stomach, was now from my groin up to my shoulder blades. And what was happening was my digestive juices were um, trying to digest my organs inside my abdominal cavity. It felt like fire. Um, At 8:30 that night, a nurse came in and said that she was very sorry. They were unable to locate a doctor and they would try and get one the next day on Sunday. Well, during those 10 hours, it was becoming increasingly difficult to breathe. And when she told me that, I knew it was over. And because I was an atheist, um, I knew that when you die, it's just like turning off the light switch, and that's the end of everything. Just a great big nothing. And I did not believe in life after death. And I said my goodbyes to my wife. I went unconscious. I stopped breathing. Um, and then I don't know how long. I awoke standing up next to the bed, feeling better than I have had my whole life. I tried to communicate with my wife and my roommate, and they just stared through me as if I wasn't there, which made me very angry because I felt so real and so alive. And I heard people calling me from the dark hallway of the room, and I went over to them. and they told me that they'd been waiting for me a long time and I had to hurry up and go with them. So I assumed that they were going to take me to a doctor, which I asked them about, which they neither affirmed nor denied. Um, and they took me on a very long walk into ever increasing darkness. And when it got absolutely dark, I told them I wasn't going to go with them anymore, and they told me I had further to go. And we had a big physical fight, which began with pushing and shoving and punching and kicking. And then it became biting and clawing and scratching. And then they did much worse things to me, which I don't talk about because it's too awful. And I'm laying on the floor of that place and I heard a voice, an audible voice. I don't know where it came from. I assume God, but whatever. And it said, pray to God. And I thought, I don't believe in God. I don't pray. And the voice said, pray to God. And I thought, I don't know how to pray. I can't pray. And the voice said, pray to God. And so I began to think of what the prayers that I'd learned when I'd gone to Sunday school as a child. And I recited a couple lines from the Lord's Prayer in the 23rd Psalm. And the people that were still around me became extremely angry and were saying in obscene language that there is no God, nobody can hear you. And if I didn't stop praying immediately, they were going to do much worse things to me. But I also was very aware that as they were shouting these threats at me, they were also retreating back into the darkness further and further away. And I was very aware that they couldn't bear any mention of God. So I just kept making stuff up about God and yelling it at them. And pretty soon I find myself alone in that place. And at that time, I got to think about my life and realized what a big delusion that I had lived under all of my life as I went through my life, realizing that I was really not anybody of any great importance, although I had thought I was. And that my neglect of my wife, my children, was all a terrible thing to do. Except, anyway, so as I thought about my life, I realized that I belonged in this place and that I was going to be here forever. And in that state of utter hopelessness and despair, my mind brought up a vivid memory of me as a little boy in a Sunday school class singing Jesus Loves Me. And even more important than the words was that I felt my faith in Jesus, and I wanted that. I wanted what I'd had as a boy, this belief in this wonderful Superman kind of figure who, when I was a child, answered my prayers. And so I called out to him. And with that, a tiny light appeared in the darkness and came over me. And out of this exceedingly brilliant white light emerged hands and arms, and he reached down and touched me. And when he touched me, I was made whole, and the hands reached around my back and picked me up, and I was being filled with love like I had never known love before. And he embraced me firmly with his arms around me, rubbing my back. And I cried out of joy with my head buried in his chest. And he very gently, we lifted off from there and started traveling faster and faster. And I tried to get my composure together so that I could see where we're going. And what I saw was that we were headed what I first thought was a great galaxy of light, of stars. And then I realized they were all in movement, so I knew they weren't in stars. And then I had the big realization that this was heaven and this is where God was. And I thought to myself, he's made a terrible mistake, referring to Jesus who was carrying me. He's made a terrible mistake I'm a piece of garbage and he should put me back. And with that, we stopped just outside of heaven. And he spoke to me for the first time and he said, "We don't make mistakes. You do belong here." After we began to talk, and I found out that he had a wonderful sense of humor and he was very likable. And um, I he told me that he knew everything that I'd ever thought and everything that I'd ever done, which was kind of frightening because there are a lot of things I didn't want him to know about, but apparently he knew. Anyways, he said that he had friends that had recorded my life and he wanted to show me my life, so he called them over, and I refer to them as angels. I don't know what else to call them, and they showed me my life. And um, it started off in my childhood, of course, and it's pleasant and kind of fun. And then as I went into my adolescence, and um, I didn't like what I was seeing, and many times I asked Jesus to stop. I don't want to see anymore, and he said, "No, you need to watch this. It's important." So we went through my whole life with me protesting, and he never made any verbal comments about my life, but him holding me close to him, I could realize that he was becoming very disappointed and upset by what we were watching. And when it was over, I was so glad that my life review was over. And he said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "I have a million questions." And he said, "Ask me whatever you want." So I did. And now we spent a long time together, me asking him questions. And many times he would take me places like back into history or forward into the future or to other um, inhabited planets, all kinds of things. We had a lot of wonderful adventures together. He gave me a tour of heaven. And then I told him that I wanted to be in heaven forever. And he said that I did not have the character for heaven yet. And I had to come back to this world and live what he had taught me. And I had a big argument with him, with me arguing that it was better for me to be in heaven than to come back to this world. And he defeated my arguments very kindly and patiently. And finally, I agreed to come back. And when I agreed to come back immediately, I was back on the bed, back in the body, and back in the pain. And at that same moment, the nurse who had been in the hospital room came back and said that a doctor had arrived at the hospital. This was around sometime after 9 o'clock, and that I was going to have the surgery immediately. And they evicted my wife from the room and they prepped me for surgery, which I had at 10 o'clock that night. So that's the story.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. You probably have shared that story thousands of times.
Yes, I have.
It- and it's so Howard is just so gracious to just talk about it again, and we really appreciate you doing that. And I'll tell you, the book, My Descent into Death, where he talks about it in detail, is really absolutely amazing. And I've watched a lot of your interviews also as well.
Oh,
And I would like to know, you said that there was when you were in the hospital, you had a very nice French roommate. His name was Monsieur Florin. And I would like to ask you, whatever happened to Monsieur Florin? Did he accept Jesus? Whatever happened with him?
oh, he was a Christian, and his wife was wonderful too. Spent a lot of time with the both of them, and eventually he had gallbladder surgery and recovered from that, and went home. And now that so many years passed, I'm sure he's dead, but I never got any word about that.
So you're hopefully you'll see him again when you
Absolutely.
get to
Yep.
heaven. So then he'll probably give you a big hug.
Yep.
So that's awesome. Now I saw a couple of your other interviews, and you had mentioned that there was a nun. that had prayed for you. And when she said, and you had came and told her what happened, she said, "Well, why did it take so long? Why did it took 13 years?" Is that correct? Am I saying
Yes, yeah.
what
And
how did
I,
you meet her and how was this lady involved in
her name was Sister Mary Dolores, and in 1973 she signed up for a um, beginning painting class with me, and um, the first day of class, you go over the what's required of the class and the grading and the materials that they're going to need to buy and stuff like that. And at the end of the class, I said, "Sister, I need to talk to you." So when everyone left, and she and I were alone, I said, "Sister, I'm an atheist and I don't allow any discussion of religion in my classroom." And she said, "Oh, that's fine. I didn't come here to do that. I came here to learn how to paint." And I said, "Okay, we'll get along." So, anyways, we became really good friends. And so over the years, we would see each other once in a while, and she would send me these very cryptic um, cards in the mail, always saying, "I am praying for you," which I didn't have any idea what that meant. Um, and when I asked her that I didn't understand when she said it, it took 13 years. I don't understand why it took so long. I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "I and all the sisters in the convent that she lived in, which was Sisters of Notre Dame, um, she said, we pray for you every day." And she
wow.
said, "We've been praying daily for you for 13 years." And I just want to know how it took 13 years to get you converted.
Wow. Absolutely. That's amazing because she was really the a big part of this story. And
Yes,
that really if that had that not happened, you might have died in 19, was it 83?
85. Yeah,
1985.
yeah,
So thank God for her.
yeah.
Um, just I had several questions. Some of them are about your experience, some of them about what you think. For me, like reading the Bible, I know God would not put anything in the Bible that wasn't important. Why do you think God puts like genealogy in the Bible and the sons of this and Adam, why is that so important? Like, for example, in the book of Numbers, that's so hard to read sometimes.
Oh, yeah, you're no kidding.
Yeah.
Um, um, I th- I think the reason is because to the Jews that was important. Like um, in our culture, our genealogy is not very important. Long time ago, I dated a Ethiopian princess, and she could do her genealogy um, back um, over 300 generations. And I
Wow.
said, "Really? Let's hear you." And so she would recite her her genealogy going back, and I thought, "Okay, I get it. That's enough." Anyways, so in a lot of cultures, genealogy is really important. And so to the Jewish people, who were the ones that God selected um, to bring the one God, the true God, the God of love, to the world, they wanted those genealogies to sort of trace their ancestry.
Yeah, I actually did it ancestry.com just to see where my lineage came from.
Yep,
And it was very interesting the results I found. Now I think the only church that actually does that is the Mormon church where they actually go
yeah,
back and do that thing.
yeah,
Um, okay, thank you for answering that. When you died originally, you were in the hospital and your body died. You said you got a new body when you woke up.
yes.
And I listened to your book. In your book, you went into really beautiful detail. I really love this book. It really touched my heart. Listen, I got the Audible version, by the way, and you went into it in great detail. But when you woke up, was your body in hell the same as the body that you were in heaven, or was it different?
No, it was the same.
Wow, wow. It was the same. So you, okay. You felt your muscles move and everything like that, your heartbeat, your breath, all those feelings you still felt. Is that correct? Hello? Can you hear me? No, I think there's, let me stop the recording here.
So
You got